We'll be analyzing the film Milk, directed by Gus Van Sant, starring Sean Penn. The movie Milk is based on a non-fictional character, Harvey Milk, who was the first openly gay person elected to public office. He was alive and important from 1973 till 1978 at the time of his murder. The film is based in San Francisco, and it was filmed in 2008. When looking at the director, Gus Van Sant, it's important to remember that he was also one of the few openly gay directors of our time. And looking at the historical context, it's important to think about what was going on during the time of Harvey Milk's existence and the time the movie was made. Thinking about Proposition 6, which he fought, which would remove gays from schools and mainly teachers and such, and from other establishments, and also it would remove people who supported gays because they feared that they were molesting kids and they were raising kids to be gay. And in 2008, at the time of the movie's creation, Prop 8 was being pushed in California as well, in San Francisco, and to eliminate gay rights to be married. So the making of this movie at this time added to the controversy and was also extremely important because it reminded people of what Harvey Milk fought for, and it reminded them how important it was to him and how important this movement was to the city of San Francisco, and how these laws shouldn't be changed because of somebody's prejudice and stereotypes. Harvey Milk often spoke of in the movie, or Sean Penn often spoke of changing the world, and changing the world for gays, and not only gays, minorities. He helped elderly, but he also often talked about you have to start somewhere, where he told Cleve Jones in one of the establishing shots for the movie that they could change Arizona, where he was from, but they needed to start in San Francisco. They needed to start at their doorstep. They needed to start eliminating the police brutality that was so bad in San Francisco towards the gay community, and needed to eliminate the problems that were being caused because of prejudice and stereotype towards the gays. Sean Penn supports this extremely well, and he is quoted saying, "I also think it's important to remember, in the long run, that the tension is not between the gay and the faith community." Sean notes, "The tension is between a gay community, which is in fact really is gay, and a pseudo-faith community, which has nothing to do with God, love, or anything of real faith. So it's really just hypocrisy and hatred. So any community that really deserves that deserves the title of faith community really won't have a problem with these issues." And he's right. Sean Penn speaks very much about how we need to start respecting each other here first before we can change other places, which was ultimately Harvey Milk's goal. Throughout the movie, there are certain things that the director does, and related to the cinematography and the lighting and the shots and all sorts of different things that he does in order to give a certain message. A good example of this, I think, would be in my scene, which is from 16:16 until 21:16. It's important to notice that in this scene there's a lot of police brutality, and they express that extremely heavily. The police beating the gay people at a gay bar, and they have an interview of someone there at the time from news footage, and it talks about the horror of the incident. And then they show someone who died in the incident. They show them being zipped up in a body bag. And the shot is really gruesome. You see him being zipped up, there's blood all over his face and his clothes. His face is completely distorted, almost unrecognizable. And it's extremely difficult to look at.
Any witnesses?
And then right after, you hear Sean Penn talking to the police officer, and there's a lot of hostility towards him, as he calls the gay victim's lover a trick. And he says he's not his trick, he's his lover. He's very offended by that. And this whole scene is shot in a whistle, in the reflection of a whistle, because these people, when they were being attacked, they would blow a whistle, the people in the gay community, and they would blow a whistle, and other gay members of the community would rush to aid them. And this man's whistle has blood on it, and you can see it on the floor, and it's gold and shiny, and the entire conversation between Sean Penn and the policeman is filmed in the reflection of this whistle, which is very significant in my opinion, because it shows this defeat and this significance of what just happened, while Sean Penn picks up the whistle and he discusses how nobody would speak up against him because the cops are protecting him, and it just shows how much of a struggle they had while they still had all this extra protection, and they were being fought by the cops, they were being fought by the society, and it was just difficult for them. And I think this scene really expressed that. During the beginning of Harvey Milk's campaign, we see different posters supporting minorities, supporting old people, revising police budgets, and these big, brightly colored, big worded posters pop into the screen, and it gives you a sense of what he's getting at. He helps you understand his points when he's running for a city supervisor. The angles in this film, especially in moments of extreme tension, really help to add to that tension and really help to add to the building up to a certain moment. For instance, when Harvey Milk's lover hangs himself, we see Milk walking up the staircase, and it's narrow, and there's posters and flyers and pieces of paper everywhere, and he seems nervous, scared almost, and his expression is quite clear as he stumbles up the stairs looking at all these flyers, and we see one of them and it says, "It's always been about you," which causes him to worry even more. And we follow him up the stairs, we see him rushing, we see him throwing things aside, and we see Harvey Milk come in and he's yelling for his lover. The camera looks in doorways as Harvey Milk does, revealing that there's nobody there. And you think maybe he left, you don't know what happened to him. And then there's a curtain where there shouldn't be. And there's a letter on it. And then the curtain's moved. And you see his lover hanging there. And it moves in rapidly with Sean Penn as he running through all these drawers, and you see him flustered and completely like just out of his mind while he tries to find something to cut down his deceased lover. And we see from behind where he falls down on him, and he's holding the love of his life dead in his arms, and he's crying and he's sobbing. And then it immediately cuts to a meeting, but Harvey Milk he's not okay. Sean Penn is sitting there. His hair is just completely messed up after being completely clean shaven, clean cut for months, years. He's sitting there completely in disarray. His tie is skewed, and you can see how this has affected him, and it gives a lot of foreshadowing to the scene. You worry what's going to happen next. Is it going to affect his campaign? Is it going to affect his life? Is it going to affect his views on what he's fighting for? And it makes you worry about the movie itself and about Harvey Milk, and it helps you connect personally as you see how much he's suffering. Another thematic idea that is seen often through through the movie Milk, is the idea of fighting for what you believe in, as Harvey Milk clearly did in real life and in the movie. Sean Penn, in one scene, is given a letter, and it says, "You receive the first bullet when you go to the stand," or when you take the microphone, or something along those lines. And this is right before one of his biggest speeches. So it adds a lot of tension to the scene when you know he could die in seconds if he takes the stand. He throws the letter aside, ignoring it, and he stands up and he starts speaking. And it just shows that he didn't care about dying as long as he got the message across. He knew that if he was shot in front of all those people, it would just show the strength of his movement and show how scared people were. Even more so when he received a letter showing him being stabbed. He received a drawn picture of him being stabbed and killed near the beginning of the movie. And the other actor whose name slips my mind, his first lover in the movie, tries to throw it away. He says, "Let's throw it away, let's burn it." And Sean Penn goes, "No. If we hide it, it'll grow. We can't let this happen." And he sticks on the refrigerator. A picture of himself being murdered, he sticks on the refrigerator and says, "We need to leave it here, and we need to see it every day, and then it has no power if we face this." And he was right. He knew that if he faced the opposition, and if he could stand up to these people, that he could make a movement. He could make a movement worthwhile, and he could show people what he was fighting for and how worthwhile it was. And he did that, and that's a common theme to show that he never stopped fighting, even until he died. This movie is clearly a biographical film, as it is recounting Harvey Milk's life, or the later years of his life. And it is also clearly a drama, which we can see through the extensive tensions, the extensive buildup of tensions, the sudden releases in epic, sometimes even gruesome moments. some comedy in the movie, but often a lot of depressing things occur. A lot of fear when White is drunk and he says he's got a present for him, and you know the Harvey Milk dies because you see it at the beginning of the movie, which is a great establishing shot that they show his interview and they say if this should be played at the time of my death, while they show the actual news footage of the announcement of his death and his assassination. It reveals the ending of the movie, establishing the opening scene.